question, if I may, to Dr. Huffbauer. You highlighted that high fixed costs are one of the reasons that more large companies export. How can these costs be reduced to help small firms export?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I only addressed one aspect, which was the, well, maybe two aspects, the export finance aspect and the technical assistance. But of course, the costs go much further than that. And as Mr. Greenblatt and Mr. Bond have emphasized, these trade barriers abroad are a big part of the cost. I mean, it's just terrific to learn. For example, you want to ship as a small exporter to let's say, Indonesia. It takes quite a bit of learning to figure out how that customs operates. Sad to say, corruption is a part of the problem, and this takes a bit of learning. And then, if you're selling something that requires after maintenance, that's a problem too. So, how much of this can the U.S. government deal with? Well, as Mr. Greenblatt emphasized, trade agreements are an important part for dealing with foreign trade barriers, and also this trade facilitation aspect, which has a lot of dimensions. We don't have time to go into those, but it can do something. At the end of the day, I regret to say, small business will be handicapped because the fixed costs are just high. But the handicaps can be lowered, and the one I focused on, or the two I focused on, were the technical assistance, information, a lot of hand-holding, you could call it that, plus the finance, which is terrifically difficult. I don't know if Mr. Bond's firm is having problems, but I've heard in this recession that small business firms are really hurting on the financing front all across the board, but on this export finance, it's terrible. So those are just some measures which might do a little bit.
Thank you. Mr. Bond, exporters have expanded access to information on new markets and can use that information to grow faster. How do companies in exporting industries benefit from this acquired knowledge?
Well, I think this relates to your last question in many ways. It's a scale advantage of large companies. They may be able to afford the staff to look into all those things, know those things. Small companies, much less so. One of our members, in fact, said, to take advantage of many of the government programs, I have to retain a full-time person in Washington. I can't afford to do that. So the answer is making this information available, making it transparent, maybe online or through export assistance centers and other, I think Dr. Huffbauer called it hand-holding, ways to take the information to the small companies. I think those are the kinds of things that we're looking for. And welcome some of the things that the Commerce Department and Secretary Locke have talked about in this regard, trying to increase some awareness there.
Thank you. Mr. Greenblatt, small exporters increased employment faster and pay higher wages than their domestic-oriented counterparts. Why is this so? What can we do to encourage domestic-oriented firms to look abroad for opportunities?
I think that companies that are exporting things abroad are a little more sophisticated. They're willing to deal with a country that doesn't speak English, and they're a little more aggressive, and they're probably more innovative, like Mr. Bond was saying, so that they could differentiate themselves from a domestic competitor. I think the best thing, the quickest way to help small business right now is to rip down trade barriers, because what will happen is it'll make it a level playing field. We can go in there and we can fight in Colombia. We can go compete in Panama, and we can sell into South Korea. Right now, I sell to Japanese automotive clients, and we do very well in that market, Toyota, Honda, etc. But we want to sell more to Hyundai, and we want to sell more to them.
Talk to me. I know that, look, you have the knowledge now in terms of going into foreign countries and learning the processes that it will take in order to navigate their system. what would you suggest is we should do to help facilitate small businesses navigating the different processes in those foreign countries?
There's a number of programs out there right now where through the U.S. Commerce Department that are available to help, go to trade shows and things of this nature that I think are beneficial and positive and we can continue doing, and I don't think they hurt. But the big thing is, ripping down taxes. Right now we have significant disadvantages. There's barriers where we pay duties when we ship to their countries, and they don't pay duties when they ship to our country. And this is true in Panama and Colombia, et cetera. And that's one quick way you can help us.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, according to USDA, the U.S. will have a $22.5 billion trade surplus for agricultural products. And that sounds like good news for farmers and ranchers and should help them remain profitable in hard economic times. How can we maintain this surplus, and how important are small farmers and ranchers to that equation?
Well, I think maintaining it, if you focus on the two programs that I talked about at USDA, one is run through the Foreign Ag Service, the other one through the Agriculture Marketing Service. There's a lot of technical assistance that's provided there. I've led trade teams to lots of different countries as the Ag Commissioner in North Dakota. And I will say that far and away, the biggest benefit that we got from that was having Foreign Ag Service people located in those countries who knew the customs, who knew the people, who knew the marketplace, and could help match up those characteristics with the companies that we brought along. And so we did a lot of that work in advance of going over to try and figure out how do you put the right company into the right kind of marketplace, and then putting those meetings together. If you don't have that, you're just at sea. And so those kinds of things, and I think that's a lot of what Dr. Huffbauer was talking about with technical assistance. That's really important to small companies. So I would, unfortunately, a lot of them don't know about that assistance. A lot of them are, they're just busy doing what they're doing, and they're struggling. And so if we can get this information in front of them, if we can do more of that hand-holding along the way, more of that marketplace discovery and information, and put it in front of them, I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you. Dr. Huffbauer, while the U.S. trade balance was declining over the past year, the last few months reversed course, increasing by 13%. As the global economy recovers, do you believe that we are now on a path toward higher trade deficits?
Yes. And the only way there are a lot of things have to be done to reverse that course, but the administration has to back up its declared goal of doubling, which I endorse fully, with much stronger policies than have been announced so far.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Graves.